The subject is really so immense. It is enough for any one of the topics in the subject to go on for even 1 year. In fact, one of the advanced scientists of ancient India, writing his on astrology, he says that it is an ocean, and those who are enamored of the immensity of the subject are like those who are swimming in the ocean. Therefore, he says, it is better to have a boat to take the voyage than to swim. He says that the boat is very small when compared with the area of the ocean, but yet it gives a safe journey, enough to cross any distance in the ocean. Similarly, it is for us to have a plan to study astrology, and our plan decides our scope of the subject, and our stage of evolution decides our plan. Thus, that is true with any subject like astrology. And in the Bhagavad Gita also, the attitude of a spiritualist towards such subjects is given like this. Don't try to estimate about the water in the river, but try to have the container which you can contain. That is how any spiritual subject is described in the Bhagavad Gita. So our attitude decides our stage of evolution, and still the ocean remains. So with the advice of our brother Paul, we will proceed with the study of the sign Aquarius, since we are in the early stages of the Aquarian age. Yes, but before that, I have something of my own choice also to tell you this year. The various methods of progressions, in the Occident will give you the keys of the evolution of the consciousness. And there are certain methods of progression in ancient India which are very significant and characteristic, which people did not much care to bring to light till today. So the wider world does not know the significant aspects of progression in ancient Indian astrology. So I want to introduce one very significant method of progression, and then while you are applying this method to yourself as your homework, then I will make a study of Aquarius during the next few days. I will introduce the new method just through degrees. Today I will introduce the first step and then go into the study of Aquarius. You try to understand the first step given today, and tomorrow I will give the next step, so that the new method may not be a confusion to you.
Verwirrend wird.
There is one system of progression in India called the system of Dasha. Dasha means a period. The whole span of life is divided into planetary periods, and each planet is given a fixed number of years, and the beginning period is decided according to the longitude of the ascendant. So, I will give you the magnitudes of the periods of each planet today. The durations of the periods of each planet. The periods occur in the following succession. First, the sun's period, and then the moon, then the period of Mars, then the period of ascending node. No, it is called node.
The moon node.
Moon's node. Moon's ascending node. North node.
Aufsteigende Mondnoten.
Yes, moon's north node or ascending node. Then Jupiter's period. Then Saturn's period. Then the period of Mercury. Then the moon's descending node. Then finally the period of Venus. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The whole span is divided into 9 planetary years. The period of sun will be 6 years, moon 10 years, Mars 7 years, Jupiter 16 years, Saturn 19 years, Mercury 17 years, descending node 7 years, Venus 20 years. I am a little poor in calculation. Can you tell me the total? 120 years. That means I am correct.
Uh-huh.
This does not mean that everyone lives for 120 years, but each is born somewhere in the middle of some one period, completes the span in the same succession of planetary years, and up to which period he lives decided upon the position of the planets in his horoscope. For example, when the planet that afflicts the ascendant and the moon, when its period occurs, the person do not continue after that period.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Im
The planet which afflicts moon and the ascendant, or sun and the ascendant, or sun and the moon, any two of the three. Afterwards we will take an example and show you. So, for the present, remember that we are born somewhere in one place and continue the periods in the same direction. For example, if I was born in Saturn period, suppose 7 years is left behind, that we are going to decide through calculation. So after that 7 years of Saturn's period, I will experience 17 years Mercury period. So from my 8th year, I will have Mercury period. Next, the period of descending node. Next 20 years, Venus. Next 6 years, Sun. Like that it continues until the planet which kills comes.
Bis der Planet kommt.
So this is one step. You have understood this one step? So if anyone has no doubts about this step, I will give the second step also. No, that is the starting, how to calculate the starting point of the period. We take the birth horoscope and take the longitude of the ascendant, and according to it, we will calculate the beginning period among these, and also calculate how many years of the period is in balance. So from his birth date, that particular period continues, and then the same order of other planets continue.
Until he
Yes,
dies.
even that is decided by the planet. The birth horoscope should be judged first. Judgment of the birth horoscope should be made. We have to decide which planet kills. We'll also, if you want, I will also make a discussion of it. And then, in the period of that planet, this span will be completed. Now, next point. Suppose it is understood that the person is going to die in Venus. It does not mean that within these 20 years he may die, but we get sub-periods to calculate. We get exactly the period when one incident occurs. So it is not the total periods we take into consideration, but we go into details. It is not the totals of the periods we take into consideration, but we are going to get in the details because we are going to divide each period into sub-periods. So I will mention the second point, the sub-periods. This also same thing. The whole period, here the whole period is 120. Here the whole period is 6. You take proportion. If the total period is 120, Sun's period is 6 years. If the total period is 6 years, Sun's sub-period will be proportion. For example, 3 months and 18 days. If you calculate the proportion, you will get like that. The principle is this. When the total is 120 years, Sun's period is 6 years. When the total period is 6 years, Sun's sub-period in Sun period is this much. This we say Sun's sub-period in Sun's period. Similarly, next we have sub-period of Moon in Sun's period. That means the main period is Sun, but the sub-period will be the Moon. So the combined influence of Sun and Moon will operate when that period is running. So when the total is 120, the Moon's period is 10 years. But when the total is 6 years, the Moon's sub-period will be, it is only a calculation of proportion. Like that, next we get sub-period of Mars. That means Mars sub-period in Sun's period should be calculated in the same way. If the total is 120, Mars period is 7 years. If the total is 6 years, Mars period should be 4 months, 6 days. Like this, we get all the sub-periods up to Venus. So, now if we take a horoscope and go on adding these sub-periods one after one, you will know when Sun and Moon is acting. You will know when Sun and Mars are acting. Like that, you will know the sub-periods and the main periods. You will decide the nature of incidents that occur in his life. You see, and if you add the simple transits of these two planets, you will get the exact dates of incidents.
Daten der Ereignisse.
For example, if the Mars sub-period in Sun's period is occurring, if you take his birth horoscope and see where the Mars and the Sun are traveling, what aspects they are making with the birth horoscope, and what is the aspect of Moon to these planets at birth. That gives you the year, month and day of the incident. This is one method.
This is pardon?
One method. So I have given you 2 steps. Tomorrow, by the time you come here, you calculate the sub-periods of Sun up to Venus. Then we will proceed to the next two steps. If anyone has not understood, you can again ask me. Yes, that I have not yet discussed. We will take the ascendant, that is the degree minutes, and if you know it perfectly well, also the seconds. Then according to that, we calculate the period under which you are born, and also the number of years and months and days that are left as balance when you are born. We will take that as the starting point and we will add it to the date of birth. And continuously we will be adding these sub-periods in the same succession. So tomorrow I will tell you the next two steps. Yes, we have not yet entered into the calculation of the period. It is only tomorrow we want a horoscope. Today we have given only the tables.
Die Tabellen gegeben.
I have introduced the planetary tables of that method. So we will take a horoscope and proceed. That is how we do from tomorrow. No. All the incidents, because death is not an incident at all. It is only a stop of incidents. Death is only a stop of incidents and it's not an incident. This method is useful to know all the incidents before death and also spiritual aspects. More importantly, the guidance for the soul, guidance for initiation, and the nature of obstacles that are awaiting for your spiritual progress and the method of overcoming these obstacles. For that purpose, this method is used in India. It is an age-old method. Even now, the orthodox astrologers use this. Traditionals, the traditional tradition, when spiritual matters are to be considered. Because in the ordinary methods, we do not get much spiritual information. Methods of calculations given in the popular astrology, it gives only the rough outlines. From the moment you become self-conscious of your own spiritual path, the popular astrology fails to give results. So, we cannot much rely upon the popular methods. We want a method which is directive and not predictive. Because we have the various levels according to which the planets work with us. Only when we are in the lowest of our consciousness, the planets work without fail, because they are to work under compulsory circumstances. When we are in the primitive stage of our emotions, that is totally on the materialistic plane of consciousness, our progress cannot be chosen by us. Then the planets have to choose for us. So they do not allow any choice to us. They work compulsorily. They make predictions correct. So our good and bad incidents occur infallibly and they can be clearly predicted. Every incident can be very easily predicted when the human birth is lowest, that is most materialistic, most mundane and most emotional. Then every planet gives his own explosion to the consciousness, and the consciousness always precipitates incidents. Whenever the consciousness comes into contact with others, it is not only contact, but it is also a conflict. Without conflict, we do not have a contact with others, whether it is animals or plants or human beings. So the planets precipitate actions by stimulating us. In that stage, what the planets do is, they expose us to the required environment so that we may come into conflict with the environment and make our experiences often painful with others. This gives an expression to our emotions that are arranged in our tendencies in a beautiful succession according to what we have done previously. So, our previous behavior prepares tendencies in us. The succession of our previous behavior will arrange the succession of the incidents in this life and the tendencies into which we explode with others. For example, suppose I committed a crime in France and came to Germany. Suppose I killed a person in Paris. I have stolen some $10,000 from another person and escaped from the police. Took a train in the night and without a passport, suppose I could escape into Germany. Then if I stand here before you and while I am talking to you, the trend of incidents will be quite different from what I expect. See, I may be explaining astrology to you, but there will be a knock at the door and then Paul will talk to the person and they say police. Then Paul will go and speak to them and they ask, is there any Indian in your house? So the succession of incidents is quite different from what I expect or what Paul expects or what all expect. This is the case when the person is lowest in his evolution. So every planet works as a police officer and a customs officer
Zollbeamter
and a judiciary officer. So the planets always impose their discipline. For this reason, you can very easily predict for a person who is purely on the emotional. But if he has started his journey in the spiritual plane, if the question why I am born and in what direction I am going has come to his mind, and what should I do, what should I avoid to do, what type of exercise I should give to my physical body, what type of work should I give to my mental body, in which branch I have to take my education, and with what profession I have to serve the public. If these questions come to his mind and if he begins to live according to the answers of these questions, that means he is tackling with his karma, right direction. Everyone has the sequence of cause and effect. But those who are tackling the sequence can solve the problems of the sequence, pay off for what they have defaulted, and then they can stop further defaulting of anything. For example, the misbehaving with food and drink, the misbehavior with sleep, rest and work,